With only 2 weeks to go until WrestleMania 31, WrestleRant is back with another review of WrestleMania. Today it's WrestleMania 24. Graham, Jason Matthews here. Hope you guys are doing well. WrestleMania 24 holds a very special place in my heart, as it was the final WrestleMania, for one thing, that I had never seen in its entirety. I've watched WrestleManias 1 through 23 on the network. 24 was the first one that I watched on DVD just, this past weekend and really enjoyed it. But also, it was the first WrestleMania, not technically for me as a fan, because I started watching, actually coincidentally enough, only 2 weeks after WrestleMania. But for months and months and months, when I was watching, USA Network, and I would always see commercials for WrestleMania 24 on the USA Network, and I'm like, I gotta watch that. Then I realized that it was pay-per-view for a reason, and I ended up seeing that it was like $50, so I didn't even bother. But the timing couldn't have worked out better, because I got into it only 2 weeks later, and I've seen every other WrestleMania 25 through 30 live, of course, and on DVD as well, in the time that I've been a fan. So this was the final WrestleMania that I had never seen in its entirety, and I had a really fun time watching it back this past weekend on DVD. Bought it at FYE for only like $4 or $5 like 2 months ago, so that was a great deal. But kicking off the show, or I'll mention this too, we had a Battle Royal, and this is not on the network, it was only on the DVD itself, so I know that this WrestleRant is all about the watching it on the network, so I apologize, but you're not missing anything anyway, and it involved a bunch of scrubs. Kane ended up winning to earn the future ECW Championship matchup to earn his way into an ECW title match later on in the night. So a 24-man Battle Royal, Kane winning that. The first official match on the show, JBL versus Finlay in a Belfast Brawl. Much better match than I thought I would give it credit for. I thought it was a really, really entertaining matchup, considering the story behind it and the whole illegitimate son thing, which coincidentally enough got me into wrestling to begin with. I think the first full episode of Raw that I ever watched was the one where it was revealed that Hornswoggle was the illegitimate son of Vince, and not too long after that I kind of fell out of wrestling for a while until I started watching on a weekly basis in April of 2008. But so the story behind it was pretty stupid, and JBL had just come off of commentary a few months prior for that random feud against Chris Jericho, so it was a really random matchup. But for what it was, both guys are really, obviously known for their brawling, so it made for a great matchup. In the Belfast Brawl involving the trash cans and the chairs and the shillelagh, and I think JBL got clocked over the head with like a steel chair or something. I know this was before the quote-unquote PG era, only a couple months before, I might add. But still, this was a brutal bout and a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Someone noted to me on Twitter, at CageTheYanks. Make sure to follow him. He's a great guy. But he noted to me on my on Twitter while I was watching the show that I would very much enjoy this matchup a lot better than anyone ever gave it credit for, and I took it with a grain of salt, and I watched this matchup, and I ended up finding out that he was right. I thought it was a really enjoyable matchup. Not a 5-star classic, of course, but as an opener, I thought it was fine and fun for what it was, fine and fun. So good stuff there. JBL would come out victorious after hitting the clothesline from hell on Finlay to pick up the victory to kick off WrestleMania 24. So from there, we get into the Money in the Bank ladder match, and what is and still remains my favorite Money in the Bank ladder match of all time. I thought everyone in this matchup delivered. Everyone had their shining moment. Everyone hit their finishers at one point or another. I thought it was just a phenomenal match overall. I mean, a lot of the Money in the Bank ladder matches just kind of blend together, but this one in particular, maybe it's just because I'm biased towards the year of 08 and WrestleMania 24, and I've seen this match before on the CM Punk DVD. It was included on that one because, of course, Punk ended up winning this. But I thought the match itself was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And among the highlights involved the returning Matt Hardy, who had been out with an injury for months upon months upon months. And I don't know if it was in the rumors, if it was being rumored online at that time that Matt Hardy was going to come back. I know it was confirmed. But he ended up making a surprise appearance to cost MVP the briefcase. It was MVP who ended up, coincidentally costing Matt Hardy a couple months of his career, so he ended up costing him the briefcase. So that ended up working out well, and they would resume their feud going into Backlash for the United States Championship the following month. So that was a nice surprise that the people went crazy for. Mr. Kennedy, I believe, and that was the rolling senton he had at WrestleMania 23. I don't know what much he did in this matchup. I know he had a mic check on Jericho or something, maybe on Punk, on like one of the ladders or something like that. He ended up doing something pretty cool. CM Punk ended up taking a lot of sick spots on like the ladder as he was falling off of stuff. He was on the outside of the ring. He was doing all sorts of crazy shit on the outside. Shelton Benjamin having his great moment of the matchup when he jumps off of the ladder, and it was nuts. I believe he was on the ladder climbing up when Carlito and I believe the other person was Carlito and Kennedy, I think it was, ended up turning the ladder, so Benjamin crashed to ringside on top of another ladder, broke Benjamin in half. He was out for the rest of the matchup. Jericho hitting a code breaker onto CM Punk with a ladder in hand. Just a bunch of crazy shit all going on at once. John Morrison, how could I forget this? Probably the biggest highlight from this match that you see recapped and all these different highlight reels and stuff. He takes a ladder. I mean, it's hard to explain, but he's not really, but he's on the top rope, on the apron, and he takes a ladder in hand and does a backwards moonsault onto the competitors on the outside with the ladder in hand, so he connects with the moonsault. It was a crazy visual, and people were applauding him for that, and he was the heel. So everyone in this matchup, I thought, all held their places. I mean, not everyone in this matchup, had a legitimate chance of winning. But it was still a really good match. MVP, Kennedy, Morrison, Punk, Benjamin, Carlito, and Jericho were all great workers, so they all kind of held their own and had their own shining moments in this matchup. And it was the first ever 7-man Money in the Bank ladder match in history, as Jeff Hardy was supposed to be added to the mix as well. And of course, this is no secret, but he was originally supposed to win that match before he got suspended and had to lose the Intercontinental Championship to Chris Jericho only a couple weeks before WrestleMania. So that was that. But Jeff Hardy, was supposed to win this matchup, so they had to change plans. I don't know what it was that made them think that CM Punk was the next best thing. A lot of people, I went back and checked out prediction articles and stuff like that. So I don't know who else they were considering that would win this match, but Punk was the last person you would think would win this matchup, considering he was on ECW at that time. He had just gotten done with the ECW Championship, so if he was going to go to Raw, you would think, okay, he's going to win the IC title or something, not the World WWE Championship. And I love CM Punk. I'm not saying it was a wrong move. I think it was a great move, and people popped for the move. People popped for the finish when he won the briefcase and he won the matchup, because no one ever really saw it coming. But you look at everyone else in this matchup, a lot of people thought that Jericho was going to win, considering he had just returned to WWE only a few months before this. MVP was at the top of his game. People thought maybe Kennedy would get his second chance and win it back. Benjamin was, he's Mr. Money in the Bank. I know he never won it, but he's the real Mr. Money in the Bank if you really look at things. Even Carlito held his own, and John Morrison had a pretty good showing here as well, and they all pretty much had not really an equal, but everyone had their own chance of winning this matchup, and I think Punk, being the underdog in this contest, I think really added to the finish when he ended up winning, leading to the lackluster title win a couple months later, and that was never really booked right, but that's another rant for another day. But the match itself, I thought, was phenomenal. Like I said before, still my favorite Money in the Bank ladder match in history, in my opinion anyway. Like I said, my favorite, not saying it's the best, but still one of my favorites, if not my single most favorite Money in the Bank ladder match that has ever taken place. This was one of those matches because I ended up, doing stuff while watching the shows. I watched 24 and 25 on DVD. So while doing that, I'm watching it on the TV. I'm also multitasking and writing articles and stuff like that. I'm always paying attention regardless, but this was the one matchup where I put my shit down to watch this matchup because I thought it was, a phenomenal match. You always get one of those matches on these shows well, you will just stop what you're doing and just pay attention to this matchup just all the way through from start to finish, and that was this matchup on this show. So just great stuff all around there. Brand Supremacy match up next. Umaga representing Raw taking on SmackDown's Batista in a complete random-ass matchup. It wasn't even a bad match, but it was very mediocre. It was like the definition of mediocre. The two just didn't have any chemistry. I don't know what the build consisted of. And the Brand Supremacy stuff, I've talked about this in the past, it wasn't completely dead by this point. It was dead by the point they were doing fucking bragging rights in like 09 and 2010. By that point, no one cared because the Raw versus SmackDown feud had been dead for years. I still say the peak of the brand supremacy of the Raw versus SmackDown rivalry was in 2005 when they were doing the whole Survivor Series stuff on Raw Homecoming, and I talked about that in my Survivor Series 05 review, cheap plug. Make sure you go back and check that out. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, the match itself was really nothing to behold whatsoever. It just really stuck out to me. I mean, it was nice that Umaga got a nice little push, I guess, facing a former World Heavyweight Champion. I was always a big Umaga fan. I thought he never really got his rightful run as a World Heavyweight Champion over on the SmackDown brand in 08, 09. Probably by 09, I think it was too late when they ended up getting rid of him because he didn't go through with the... I believe he got suspended from the wellness policy and he didn't want to go through with the rehab or something like that. But still, though, he was getting a nice little push, so I understand that. But after having his undefeated streak snap the year before, people didn't really care as much about him as they did, as they did in early '07 and late 2006. It was what it was. Whereas Batista, in my opinion, should have either been in the triple threat match for the WWE title or something else on this show. I don't know what else you could have done with the guy, but after being in one of the better matches, one of the premier matches at WrestleMania 23, and I guess you can make a case for Umaga too, that he was also in a premier match at WrestleMania, but let's face it, that match was more about Trump and McMahon than it was about Lashley and Umaga, so you could put anyone in there and it wouldn't have made a difference, even though the match was solid. But I talked about that match in my WrestleMania 23 review if you want to go back and check that out. But going back to what I was saying before, Batista, I think, deserves so much better on the show. After being in a World Heavyweight Championship matchup at 23 the year prior, the guy's in a random throwaway matchup at 24 that they pulled out of their ass at the last minute because they had nothing else for either of these guys. So that was disappointing, and I feel like they could have done. And I know there were rumors of Triple H, Orton, and Batista, which we, in retrospect, probably should have gotten at 25, but Batista got injured, whatever. So it was what it was. But still, though, I feel like we should have gotten that matchup on this show, too. Cena versus H versus Orton was good. I thought it was a really good matchup, a good triple threat for WrestleMania. But I feel like it could have even been even better had Batista been involved. I know Cena and Triple H had their respective issues with Orton, so that's what made the match make sense. And I don't know how you would have tied Batista in there, and if you were going to tie in the whole evolution thing, you probably could have just taken Cena out completely, but I don't know where you put him on the card, so I have really no idea. Still, though, the match was a complete, snooze fest. Batista comes out victorious, solidifying brand supremacy for SmackDown, like everyone gave a shit anyway before this matchup. So that was that. ECW Championship matchup up next. I mentioned before that Kane had won a Battle Royal early on in the evening to earn the shot at the ECW Championship on this show, in this matchup. And I forgot to mention this before, but in that Battle Royal, like I said, it was complete throwaway, but Jamie Noble had the spot of the fucking night when he did like a Kofi Kingston-like maneuver. He got tossed over the ropes or something like that, and he landed on on the back of one of the competitors on the outside, and ended up using the three guys that were laying on the floor as a stepping stone to get back into the ring, and people got a kick out of that. And that was like Kofi Kingston before Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston was in that matchup, but of course this was years before he ended up doing the Royal Rumble saves and everything else. But that was a pretty cool spot, so that was that. But this matchup itself lasted all of 11 seconds. They like to tout it as being 8 seconds, but I counted and it was 11. I'm looking at Wiki right now. It's 11 seconds. So I don't know where the whole 8 seconds came from. I know they were trying to break a record, and I think they did as the shortest world. I don't know if you can count the ECW title match, ECW Championship as a world title, but some people do, whatever, I guess, to each their own. The shortest world title match in WrestleMania history, with Kane winning the ECW belt from Chavo Guerrero. So the match was exactly what it should have been. No one gave two shits about the ECW title going into the show. No one ever really did, for the most part. But going into WrestleMania, it was nice to see the ECW Championship defended. The only time in history that it would be defended at WrestleMania. So that was that. But no one really cared to see Chavo defended. He was not the most over champion. They kind of gave it to him as a consolation prize. After never really winning a mid-card title, this was kind of their way of doing so. And he was also involved in the whole La Familia thing at that time. So they wanted to add some more gold to the family by giving the belt to Chavo Guerrero. So this matchup was exactly what it should have been, being only 11 seconds. Kane quickly chokeslamming Chavo to get the win and the ECW title. So nice to see that. So good stuff there. Kane, your new ECW champion after WrestleMania 24. And up next, another masterpiece of a matchup. Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. Career-threatening matchup. If Ric Flair lost, he would have to retire. And people knew that Ric Flair was coming up victorious, or was losing this matchup. Everyone knew that Shawn Michaels was coming up victorious in this bout, but that did not take away from it whatsoever. The story they were telling, and I don't know what about the build. I only saw the video package, so I can't speak for the build of this matchup, whether they got it right or not, but you don't even have to watch the build in order to watch this matchup, because it was so, for lack of a better term, I think beautiful. It was a beautiful matchup. It was certainly a great matchup, but the emotion that both guys put into this, and some people, when I was tweeting about the show, when I was watching it on Saturday night, about a week or so ago, people were saying that this matchup should have been the main event instead. And I would not have had an issue with that. I mean, I think the world title match kind of earned its place in the main event. I understand that. But this matchup could have easily also been in the main event. That's how good it was. It was a great matchup and a great way for Ric Flair to go out to end his career in WWE. I know he would wrestle more matches in TNA and elsewhere, but in WWE anyway, this was a fantastic way for him to go out. Shawn Michaels, just a great opponent for him. And also considering the fact it wasn't like Triple H and Ric Flair, a guy, a match they had done a million times before, a match that we had seen a million times before. It was a fresh feud that, oddly enough, they had never done in WWE before this point. So it was great to see. Very well executed matchup, and of course, the phenomenal finish when it comes to Shawn Michaels setting up a second Sweet Chin Music on Ric Flair saying, "I'm sorry, I love you." I think it was, "I love you, I'm sorry." I think it was that way. I apologize if I botched that and switched it around, but still, a phenomenal finish. Michaels comes out victorious, ending the career of Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24. No better way for Ric Flair to go out crying on his way out. As the crowd celebrates, he celebrates with his family at ringside. So just a beautiful scene. It would set up his retirement ceremony the next night on Raw. One of, if not, the best retirement ceremony I've ever seen. And, Shawn Michaels was really good too, but for Ric Flair, they pulled out all the stops. They brought back so many familiar faces, had a lot of people talk and all that other stuff. You can check it out on YouTube if you want. They need to put that on the network at some point. It's a crime that they don't already have it up there already. But still, though, a great way for Ric Flair to go out. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, yeah, and it also, of course, sets up the program between Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho later on in the year, as it would set up Batista and Michaels that backlash, with Batista saying, "You should not have put Ric Flair away," and then Jericho or Michaels, feigning the knee injury, and Jericho's special guest ref saying, "You cheated," turning heel and giving us one of the best feuds in the last 7-10 years, probably one of the best feuds in WWE history, in my opinion. I know that's a little of a bold statement, but it was that great of a feud, and I think a lot of people would attest to that. But that all really, that roots back to this matchup between Michaels and Ric Flair, so just fantastic stuff. I can't really say enough good things about this. I just loved everything about this matchup between Michaels and Ric Flair. Up next, a Playboy Bunny Mania Lumberjill match with Maria and Ashley taking on Melina and the then Women's Champion Beth Phoenix. A complete throwaway matchup. They tried to put together a fine matchup, better than anything they could have done, or they did at WrestleMania 23 between Melina and Ashley. This was kind of similar, considering Ashley and Melina were on opposite sides. And I know Ashley was not originally supposed to be in this matchup. It was supposed to be Candice Michelle, but they had to switch her out due to an injury, so they put Ashley, who had already also been in Playboy at that point, in the matchup instead. But still, that didn't really change anything. If anything, it made it worse, because Ashley was, of course, like I said in my previous video, was like the WWE version of Velvet Sky, only worse in the ring. Beautiful lady, but never anything. Not a sight for sore eyes in the ring, I'll say that much, in terms of her in-ring skills. So it just served its purpose and kind of killing the crowd right before we got into the WWE title match. So in that respect, it succeeded in what it set out to do. But yeah, I just felt bad for the women. For the first time since I would say 22, we're finally getting a match that matters at WrestleMania this year at 31, so learn to appreciate it, between AJ Page and the Bella Twins in tag team action. That's a real matchup that's been built up with storyline that's not over a Playboy bunny cover or whatever, that actually has some meaning behind it and some history dating back a year and not only a few weeks. So that kind of, makes me appreciate what we currently have from the Divas, which is not much. They've only just recently started to take them more seriously. But, matches like this were not really during the Divas division best of days. I know this was before the PG era, so the last time they would really kind of acknowledge a Playboy, cover in storylines, in WWE storylines. So it was historic in that sense, but it really wasn't anything to behold. If anything, probably the most noteworthy part about this matchup was not only the fact that Snoop Dogg got himself involved, he also, he clotheslined Santino after the matchup, who was trying to make Maria jealous. Santino was hilarious at ringside, and also would get clocked by Jerry Lawler too. But another noteworthy part about this matchup was the fact the lights went out in the Citrus Bowl in Miami, or in Orlando, excuse me. And for like maybe 10 seconds or so, it was pitch black, but credit to the ladies for continuing on anyway. And they had some spotlight on them for the rest of the match before they ended up getting the lights fixed, thank God. But that was a botch. Still, that was really cool, and like I said, I commend the women for kind of getting through it and completely ignoring that the lights were out and continuing on with the matchup. So that's some awesome perseverance right there, so good stuff. So we get to the WWE Championship matchup. Randy Orton defending the gold against John Cena and Triple H in a triple threat matchup. It was not a fantastic match by any stretch of the imagination, only got about 15 minutes. I mean, it wasn't like a 9-minute triple threat like we saw at WrestleMania 22, which I thought was better, even though it was shorter, which is weird. But at least this matchup had story behind it. And say what you will, I know John Cena was hated, and I know that maybe that's why they did it, because he had a very hot return at the Royal Rumble. And from a storyline perspective, it would have made sense had they just done Cena versus Orton one-on-one at WrestleMania. I know they did it at No Way Out, but they had Orton lose via DQ or some stupid shit like that. It would have made a lot more sense if they just did Cena and Orton, considering the fact that Cena had lost his title due to Orton. I know Triple H was also out for revenge, but it's weird because I never really thought, Cena and Orton, Triple H, even Cena and Triple H, who have had some really good matches in the past, all three of these guys just do not have great chemistry together, in-ring chemistry, which is weird because they traded the title back and forth like a million times in 08 and 09 as well. But still, I feel like, it was a really good matchup. I'm not going to shit over it because I thought it was a better match than some people give it credit for and had the story behind it, which I respect. But it was by no means like a great match or anything like that. For what it was a really good triple threat. Wouldn't call it great, but really good. Orton here, I thought was a star, having the odds stacked against him here, having been the champion since, I want to say, October, and John Cena coming back from injury, Triple H coming back from injury, both guys looking to win that belt. But going back to what I was saying before, and maybe it was, from a storyline standpoint, it would have made sense had they just done Cena and Orton. But maybe after hearing the boost for Cena at MSG and all the Raws, and the subsequent Raws and whatever, leading up to WrestleMania, they freaked and they put Triple H in there instead. Because, he wouldn't get booed as much as John Cena. No one would, as one of those polarizing baby faces, as they call him. But maybe it was damage control. They thought we need some baby face that the people can get behind in this matchup so they don't, cheer Orton and boo Cena. They didn't want that dynamic, obviously. So maybe that's what it was. Maybe it was planned from the start. I guess we'll never really know. But it was a really good triple threat. Randy Orton came out victorious, still the WWE Champion. A grand win for the age of Orton at WrestleMania. So I thought the match itself, it could have been a little bit better, but for what it was, I thought it was really good. And it had an awesome finish with Orton punting Triple H and pinning John Cena, who had since been hit with a pedigree, to pick up the clean victory, retain his title, and give him the big WrestleMania moment. One of the biggest WrestleMania moments of his career, so I really enjoyed that. Up next, Floyd Money Mayweather taking on The Big Show, a no disqualification match. The match itself, again, much like the Bobby Lashley Umaga match the year before, was not a technical classic, but considering Big Show's, and he doesn't really have much of a boxing background, but considering his in-ring style is mostly punches and stuff, and then you combine that with Floyd Money Mayweather, it made for a really entertaining matchup. So it was not, like I said, with Lashley and Umaga, it was not a technical masterpiece, but for what it was, very entertaining. And I know we got to speed it up here. I'm already past the 20-minute mark. I just love this WrestleMania so much. That's why I like talking about it. But Big Show ended up getting knocked out by Money Mayweather to hand Floyd the victory. So a big win for Money Mayweather on the grand stage of WrestleMania to keep him undefeated. And like I said, a really entertaining matchup. They had a really hot angle going between Floyd and Big Show. The only thing that confused me about this matchup, and even years later, I still don't get this, and maybe someone can answer this for me, but I thought Big Show here was supposed to be the heel, even though Floyd was the one that ended up getting booed by the WrestleMania crowd. He had a lot of heel tactics too, and walking out during the matchup and having his security guards do the fighting for him. And by the way, Michael Tarver, if you can remember him from the first season of NXT, was among the bodyguards for Floyd Money Mayweather at WrestleMania. So I guess the entire posse was not of his own real posse. I guess some of them were some guys from FCW, but the only guy that I recognized was Michael Tarver 2 years before he would debut on NXT. Still, though, I thought Big Show was supposed to be the heel going into this matchup, but he got cheered. And, he had a lot of heel tactics going into this WrestleMania too, so I wasn't really sure what the dynamic would be. And Big Show was kind of a babyface after WrestleMania and his feud with Great Khali, so maybe someone could shed some light on that for me, because that always confused me. But it didn't take away from the match whatsoever. I thought it was very entertaining, and like I said before, Money Mayweather walking out victorious. So we get to the main event, The Undertaker versus Edge for the World Heavyweight Championship. Not much to say about the matchup other than it was really, really good. Just want to kind of speed up the process here. But Undertaker and Edge have always had great chemistry. I loved their feud in 2008. I think it's really, really underrated because 2008 will go down as the year of the feud, that hosted the feud, between Jericho and Michaels. But meanwhile, on the SmackDown brand, Edge and Taker were ripping it up every single week, having some amazing matches in TLC, Hell in a Cell, and also at WrestleMania. And I thought their best matchup came in Hell in a Cell and their TLC matches. I thought both those matches were better than this one. But for what it was, a really, really good matchup in the main event. I mean, it definitely earned its place. It wasn't like it was a shit fest. And I absolutely agree that Michaels versus Flair should have main evented. No, I mean, it was a really good matchup, so it earned its spot in the main event. And Taker would come out victorious 16-0 to win the World Heavyweight Championship and remain undefeated at WrestleMania, despite interference from the La Familia from Chavo from Zack Ryder and Kurt Hawkins. Chavo got involved in the world title match at 25, not 24. I'm mixing up my WrestleManias here, but still, really, really good main event and a great showing from Edge in defeat, who would also have the best pyro I've ever seen in my life. When he came down, I thought that was tremendous. That's worth watching alone. But the match itself was really, really good, though. Taker comes up victorious, new World Heavyweight Champion, much like a repeat from the year prior, and they would keep the feud going, like I mentioned before, in a great feud for the remainder of 2008. So that closes off WrestleMania 24. I still say that WrestleMania 24 is one of the most underrated WrestleManias out there. I mean, people don't shit on it or anything like that, but I feel like it doesn't get the recognition it deserves. It's not the best WrestleMania out there. It's not the most underrated, but I think for what it was worth, and again, maybe I'm just biased because I grew up in 2008 as a wrestling fan, but even watching it back, I thought it was a tremendous WrestleMania, much like Ladies and Gentlemen for WrestleMania 23. Light It Up was a fantastic theme song for WrestleMania 24 by Rev Theory, Randy Orton's band, so I thought that was a great tie-in. Also, Snow by Red Hot Chili Peppers was also a great theme song for WrestleMania. I mean, it doesn't have really a wrestling theme to it, but I still think that's a great song to this day. Still, though, a really, really good WrestleMania that I absolutely recommend that you go back and watch on the WWE Network before WrestleMania 31 in just 2 weeks. All the main events delivered, Taker and Edge, the triple threat even, Michaels and Flair, and even the other matchup between Big Show and Floyd Money Mayweather. I thought all those matches were very, very good, from good to great to phenomenal. And the Money in the Bank matchup was awesome as well, a really fun opener between JBL and Finlay. Batista and Umaga was mediocre, Kane and Chavo was exactly what it should have been, and the women's title match was pretty much throwaway. So aside from that, I thought it was a great WrestleMania. 2 thumbs up. Recommend that you go back and watch it on the WWE Network. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to show your support by liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing this video. I'll be back on Tuesday with my review of WrestleMania 25. Not my favorite WrestleMania of all time. I thought it was very, very disappointing. My first WrestleMania as a fan. So I'm going to have some fun reviewing that one. So check back on Tuesday right here on the channel for that video. In the meantime and in between time, folks, have a great week, and I'll catch you guys then.